Alright, so there's a few different, well, there's actually a lot of different ways that we can install and use MySQL on various systems. In this video, we're going to install MySQL onto a Windows machine, and what we're going to do is download a Windows installer, which is a pretty easy way to implement MySQL. Most of our work will be on a Windows machine, but we're not going to use just MySQL like we're going to install now. We're going to use a package called XAMPP, which gives us MySQL, PHP, and an Apache server. And that's basically what we'll use for this series, but I did just want to show you how to install just MySQL onto a Windows machine. Alright, so we're going to go to let's see, we'll go to mysql.com, and if we click on downloads, we want, let's see, we want the community edition, which is at the bottom, and let's see, over here on the left hand side you can see MySQL on Windows, and then MySQL installer. Alright, and I'm using a 64-bit. It doesn't look like we have a 64-bit installer, but that's fine, so I'll just grab the 32. I'm going to click down here and say no thanks. This is just basically asking you to register with them. I'm just going to skip that and save this to my downloads folder, and then we'll open that up. And we're basically just going to go through just like as if we were installing any Windows installer based programs. Alright, so you should get a screen like this. We're going to choose to install MySQL products. We'll agree to the license terms. Click next. It's asking us if we want to check for newer versions. We'll just say OK. Execute down here. Alright, so we have the latest version, so we'll click next, and here you have a few different choices. You can choose this developer option, which, let's see, it includes the MySQL server, MySQL workbench, Visual Studio plugin, and then some connectors for Java and C and other types of languages. We're not going to do that. We're going to get the server only for this example. You can also download the client only, alright, which includes Workbench, Visual Studio plugin, or you could just say full, which installs all included MySQL products. And like I said, I'm going to do server only. We're going to install Workbench and some of those other things, but we're going to do that later on. So let's click next. We'll just leave the default installation paths. Alright, so let's execute. That's going to go ahead and install. The latest version at this time is 5.6.16. You might have a different version. Alright, so we get install success. We'll click next. Alright, now this is just some configuration. Your configuration type. We can have a development machine, a server machine, and a dedicated machine. We're going to keep the development machine. We can leave the default TCP/IP port number, and we don't need to do any advanced configuration right now. So we're just going to click next. Now you need to create what's called a root user. Alright, so the username is root, and you need to set a password for that root user. So I'm going to do that now. Now, you don't want to use your root user when creating databases or doing anything really. So for that, you should create a new user. So I'm going to click Add User and say Brad. Password, I'll just say 1234. Alright, you should obviously have a more secure password than that, but that's just for this example. And let's see, we want all hosts. We want this user to be an admin. You can see there's different kinds of access you can give this user. And authentication. Alright, so that's good. Now we're going to have our root user, and then we'll have our Brad user. Click Next. We can give this a name. Default is MySQL 5.6, which I'll just keep. We can choose to start the server at system startup, which we'll keep. And we'll keep the standard system account. Alright, so let's click Next and finish. Ignore this. Alright, so now we have MySQL on our machine. If we go to our Start menu, you can see we have this command line client, and it's going to ask us for our password, and this will be your root password. And now we're in. If you see this MySQL and this greater than sign, that means you're in the console. So we can do things like show databases. Oh, and you want to do a semicolon, or it's going to just give you a new line. Alright, so by default we have this information schema, and we have our test database. If we want to use that database, we can say use test. Alright, and it says database changed. We can now say show tables. Oh, I always forget that semicolon. Alright, so it's an empty set. We don't have any tables. Now I am going to do a command line tutorial section, so I'm not going to do too much here, but just know that it is installed and you can access it. There's one more thing I want to show you, and that's that I want to be able to access MySQL from our regular Windows command prompt. Alright, so right now we're in the Windows command prompt. If I say MySQL, it's going to say that it's not recognized. What it's doing is it's looking at our path environmental variable, and it's not finding it, so we need to add it ourselves. Alright, so to do this, we want to click on computer. We want to right click and then go to properties, and then we want to click on advanced system settings. And let's see, environmental variables, and you should have this path variable. If you don't, you can just click new and create the path variable. Since we already have it, we're going to click on edit, and basically we just want to tag on to our paths. We have one program in here which is going to our npm, which I actually don't even need. Alright, so now what we need to do is find the path to the MySQL program, which would be in computer, C drive, program files, MySQL, and then MySQL server, and then the version number. Oh, I'm sorry, then the bin. Alright, so in here we should have mysql.exe, which is the main program. So let's just copy this path right here, and we're going to add that to our path environmental variable. Okay, so if we say OK, OK, and OK. Okay, so now let's close this. Let's re-enter our command line. You can do that down here in the Start menu with CMD. You could also pin it to your taskbar if you want. Alright, so we can access it from here. And now if we say MySQL, you can see we get an error, but it's an access denied error. Okay, so we just need to log in. And we can do that. Say MySQL, and user equals, and we're going to use the Brad user. All right, and then we can say password equals 1234. All right, so now we're logged in as Brad, and we can say show databases. All right, so now we're logged in as Brad. I would advise that you log in as a different user than your root user. All right, so that's how you install MySQL Server onto a Windows machine.